Here we go, 26 years of Pokemon and 20 different mainline games. After reviewing each game, it's time to finally decide which... So there's a new... Let's get this video out before it releases then! Hey everybody, and welcome back to the series that's been looking at each Pokemon game, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly, to decide which one is the best Pokemon game ever. What features work well, and some that maybe we could have lived without. So those roller skates never really stuck, huh? We covered a lot of games here, like a whole lot, and I can't really share my deepest thoughts on each one right now. That's why I made all the other videos. But to sum up, Pokemon started strong, a new style of game no one had seen before, and being able to make improvements to the formula with great success, with nicer colours, more complicated combat. Over time though, it got harder to make the game exciting and new, while still at its core being the same game. Better graphics helped, but a lack of good stories and crazy new gimmick battle styles made the franchise go stale. There were some good successes. Yeah, definitely not talking about you here, buddy. Go sit over there with Zelda 2 and Sonic Boom. And Mario Hotel. In fact, there's a whole CDI section over there. You can just sit way over there. While there were some great games as the series went on, I think it's fair to say Pokemon games were now a 50-50 chance of being good or not. Weirdly, Game Freak sticking to its guns and keeping the formula of the game basically the same is both what made it so popular, but was also its undoing. Game Freak would need to change a lot in order for Pokemon to survive. With that said, along with all my other thoughts I've shared in the other videos, let's dive into the top 5 Pokemon games. Now, I'm trying not to cloud my judgment on which games are better with nostalgia. It's easier to prefer some of the earlier iterations of Pokemon simply because your memories around that time might have been good too. Pokemon Diamond and Pearl reminds me of summer, going on vacation with my family, and when I started to strategize a team more than, this one looks cool. So of course, to me personally, Diamond and Pearl is right up there. But that doesn't mean the game itself was the best in the entire series. So just remember, I'm trying to be objective here. Number 5, Pokemon Yellow. There's nothing like the original game, and while Yellow isn't the first game, it was definitely the best way to play the original game. Pikachu follows you and you get all the starters. No brainer. The original games are still so iconic. Without it, we wouldn't have the Pokemon games we know and love, and this one sparked the constant request, make Pokemon follow you in this one. You can pick this game up now and still have a blast. While graphics are dated, I find them charming, and sometimes going back to the basics is better. None of this Mega Gigantamax terrestrialized forms and Pokemon are me. The simplicity of the game was why it works so well, while still having multiple opportunities. How would you build your team? Just simple animal slaves fighting other animal slaves. What's wrong with that? Well, a lot if you phrase it like that. But this game is still amazing, 20 or so years later. Number 4, Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. As far as remakes go, this was probably the best. Pokemon Gold and Silver were great games, but this took it to the next level. Beautiful colours, full daytime-nighttime cycle, and all the new features brought from Gen 3 and 4. Being able to have every Pokemon all the way up to Gen 4 was great, including all the legendaries to discover. And let's not forget it included the Pokewalker, a feature that brought the joy of Pokemon into the real world before Pokemon Go. The game took full advantage of the dual screen functionality of the DS used in Diamond and Pearl, but this was something else. Pokeathlon is undoubtedly one of my favourite side games in the entire series. It was fun, and maybe the fact it never returned was why I loved it so much. Heart Gold and Soul Silver was one of the last games that kept to the basics but wasn't boring. Gold and Silver was one of the greatest game sequels ever, and this was one of the greatest remakes of a sequel ever, and I miss it so much. Maybe I should look into some game stores and get a copy. £140? And that is why I support emulation. Speaking of support, it would be great if you guys could support this YouTube channel. A lot of work goes into making these videos enjoyable for you all, and I'm still seeing 70% of my views come from those not subscribed. If you're enjoying these videos, make sure you're clicking that subscribe button. It gives me the strength I need to keep going and keep coming up with more ideas. While you're at it, write in the comments what game you want me to talk about next. I want to make content that you, the viewer, want to watch. Anyway, back to the top 5. Next is number 3, Pokemon Sun and Moon. I know I'll probably have mixed views on this one. I loved Sun and Moon. It felt like it saved the franchise from the train wreck of X and Y. Some things were a bit out there with Ultra Beasts, but they tried to mix things up. Island Trials, Poke Rider, Alolan forms, they're all pretty good. Regional forms were what the franchise needed, as it allowed more Pokemon to keep being made, but being able to use old Pokemon we already loved. It made sense. And now it makes me think if there were other Pokemon which might have actually been regional forms of past Pokemon. I felt like trying to catch them all was a task that was doable, but also something I actually wanted to do. Which is kind of important when the slogan is, gotta catch them all. I should really feel like I have to. The story had twists, and it felt pretty good. While I still didn't like how they made the game easier with Pokemon Refresh and all the other stuff, Sun and Moon felt like a step in the right direction of shaking things up and moving on to new ideas and concepts while still keeping the heart of the game at the centre. It may not be everyone's most popular game, but for me, it gets a lot of points for trying something different and, for the most part, working. Sun and Moon, you get an A+ in trying. Number 2, Pokemon Black and White. The last 2D Pokemon game that absolutely reached the peak of the 2D format. The graphics were incredible, really getting a feel of the huge buildings and landscape while still being 2D. Lots of gimmicks were thrown in, like seasons and new battle styles, which were good, and I think they should have stayed because it really allowed for multiple opportunities, different Pokemon appearing depending on the time of year and new areas being accessible. It was complicated, but not in a way that confused me. That can't be said for the triple battles and rotation battles though. I'm still not sure I understand them, but I think given time they could have still been enjoyed. The story in Black and White was beautiful. It felt like Game Freak spent time making a good story, not just focusing on gameplay. The contrast between each game made it fun too, to see that friends with the other version had a different experience. Some amazing powerhouse Pokemon came from this generation, and was a brilliant culmination of all the previous 2D games. Game Freak knew they needed to make the classic game of Pokemon more interesting, and they absolutely nailed it in Black and White. Topping this game would take a lot. This brings us to the final verdict, the game that currently stands as the best Pokemon game ever. Pokemon Legends Arceus. I don't think this comes as a surprise to anyone that this game comes out on top. A game that realised that with the capabilities of the Switch, it could be something brand new and something we always dreamed of having, actually catching Pokemon. At this point in the franchise, I was losing my interest in Pokemon. We were getting the same game time and time again, with small twists and gimmicks that did very little to revitalise it. Pokemon Legends Arceus changed everything. No gym badge collecting, and pulled the focus back to catching them all and creating an open world with side quests and exploration. Being able to ride Pokemon had been a feature before, but this was on another level. Not just to get to places faster, but to explore new terrain and traverse the land of Hiseu. While the combat stayed largely the same, which I was fine with, the new gimmick they added worked. It wasn't a big display of power, and it wasn't a new form change, it was simply a new way of fighting. Agile moves allowed you to possibly hit twice but at the expense of the power of your moves, or strong moves give you the chance to increase your power and knock the enemy down in one hit, but takes longer before you can attack again. It was so simple but incredibly effective, and was a new strategic way of fighting rather than just making your Pokemon a really big boy. The story was a good one, enjoyed following how it would all unfold with some great twists and a satisfying ending. I played this game to completion and loved every minute of it. Except for the Spirit Tomb quest. That felt like trying to get all the Korok seeds. Hey, I found another similarity, guys! Add it to the list! Pokemon Legends Arceus has broken new ground in a long-standing franchise, and honestly, without this game, I'm not sure the franchise would last. We can see in Scarlet and Violet that they are implementing the open world aspect, and being able to fight gym leaders in any order. So clearly, Legends Arceus has proved to be a success, and will go on to shape the future of Pokemon games. So I think you can agree, this game is definitely the best Pokemon game ever. Thanks for watching. So there you have it, that's my top 5. I know you may think I've missed some of your favourites, but remember, this is just my opinion and thoughts, not a definitive answer. This has been a long series to cover, so thanks for watching and sticking around. Were there games you think should have been in the top 5? What do you make of my top 5? Put it in the comments, and I'm probably going to have to cover Scarlet and Violet at some point when it comes out, so I guess I'll see you all then. Bye-bye!